The stars are good
God.
every 10 years. Is that right?
Don't even get me started on
Indianapolis
that one.
even have a
I don't
hockey
even remember. Oh, Mike Badano. That's his name. I was like, Mike Wazowski. That's not Mike.
That's
Mike
a monster
Wazowski is
thing.
not
He's a
the same.
monster.
That's for my other
Wazowski.
podcast. I'm watching you, Wazowski.
That was good. That was pretty good.
We should just do an intro of just impersonations one time.
Yikes.
We've done accents before, and I don't think that was
Oh,
great.
that was horrible. Let's not bring that up again.
All right.
You're listening to the Janchi Show, hosted by 3 Korean American adoptees diving headfirst into what it means to be adopted, Korean American, and more. And now, here's your hosts, Nathan, Patrick, and KJ.
Welcome back to the Janchi Show. This is episode 30. That's how old I was 1 year ago. But now I'm 31.
Wow.
My name is Patrick Armstrong. I'm one of the hosts here of the Janchi Show, and I'm with my other host, KJ, and my other host, Nathan. What are we going to do today, guys? First, we're going to tell them what Janchi means. Nathan?
Yes, Janchi. Janchi, part of the word dol Janchi from how we originally took it. But celebration, feast, we want to enjoy life. Okay, that's not really what we want to do. We want to feast with each other and explore our Korean heritage as well as our identities and our stories and explore some food. So we are the Janchi Boys.
Heyo.
That was a pretty good explanation. That was a good summation of that. I liked it.
Also, I feel like for as hot and as fast as Patrick came in, you were like, and now the opposite. So I'll Goldilocks it and just be right there in the middle.
Okay, good.
Perfect. That was right in the middle, too. I loved it.
Yeah, that's what I'm here for.
We got a great show today. Matt Delatour, our guest. That's who it is, right? Okay.
Yep, that is
All right,
accurate.
I forgot. We're just been getting so far ahead because we're professional podcasters now, which I really enjoy saying. I'm saying it.
Okay, here's the deal. While we are technically receiving monies, I don't know that I would call us professional podcasters, as this episode will have been a 24-hour. It will have been a 12-hour turnaround.
But isn't that professional,
Yeah.
Nathan? How many 24-hour shoot turnarounds have you done?
I've
for
done same day
photography?
turnarounds. Yeah, totally.
Okay.
You can
Yikes.
do whatever you want. Time does not make the title of professional versus amateur.
You're
I would
right,
say
money
we could,
does.
if you want to go in the middle, you can call us semi-professional. How about that?
I'm okay with semi-pro.
Semi-pro?
Okay.
I'm
Yeah.
okay with that, too.
We'll go with semi-pro
Yeah.
then. All right, we're working up to pro.
We're only halfway through 1 year, so that makes sense for us to
Yeah.
just be semi-pro.
We did
And
just
then-
hit like our 6-month anniversary, right?
Yeah. Hey, we've got over 3,400 listens now, so that's pretty good.
But it's not about the numbers. It's
sure,
about the
sure.
It's not
fans.
about the
we shouldn't
numbers.
talk about numbers.
It's about
Sorry.
the fans.
Scratch that.
He meant 34 million listeners.
We meant
That's how many listens we
34
have.
billion.
Well, this is not what we were going to talk about originally, I don't think.
Nope.
But I think it is fair to talk about I know we do a lot of recapping, kind of where we're at, but we don't ever talk about I feel like a lot of the technical part of the show.
That's because
just
people fall asleep unless you're really interested in it.
Well,
You know?
okay, I'll stop talking
Like,
about
I'm
it.
really interested in it, but I realize
know,
like
I'm
other
interested in it
people
too.
are just like not going to be interested.
Nerds.
They're like, you watch the behind the scenes of Lord of the Rings multiple times, and I'm like, yeah, that's why I want to be a filmmaker.
I think there's a lot of people out there who want to start podcasts and would be very interested in the behind the scenes.
All right,
See?
that's fair. You right.
See, Nathan said it.
right.
This is behind the scenes.
If
but
Nathan
in
said
front
it,
of the
then it's
scenes,
law. Yeah, this is.
No, definitely
Yeah.
not.
because it's in the podcast itself. It's in the podcast itself.
No, but what are we talking about? Aren't we? We're talking about KJ.
Gross.
I was going to ask, should we restart? I don't know if I derailed us
No, that's
too
fine.
badly right there.
That's fine.
Yeah, let's talk about
This is
KJ.
what people
KJ
are
had a
here for.
great thing come out today. For the listener who may not know, KJ, our host KJ, is pretty musically inclined, and today he released a brand new single called "Into the Dawn."
It's
Right?
called To the Dawn.
Oh,
I mean, I sing. No, I sing. I also just sing To the Dawn. It's not Into the
I
Dawn.
thought it was
it's just
into.
To the Dawn. Nope.
I mess
To
up
the
titles constantly. So my apologies. To the Dawn. KJ, Talk to us about that. It's a great song. I love it. I really enjoyed it when you sent it to us yesterday. And I'm glad you've been getting such a really good reception today. What's it been like to put that out, and how are you feeling about it?
I feel very good about the song, which is why I decided to put it out. I was not originally going to put it out, which is probably why it is good. I do not call myself a songwriter. I've gotten some very lovely emails and texts saying things that would imply that I am a songwriter. I am not. I have written a song. That does not make me a songwriter. So yeah, it was good. It came out of having some time alone this weekend, and yeah, I sat down mostly as therapy for myself to write the song and just explain how I've been feeling for the past, however long it's been. And I'm in a lot of ways still very much in the middle of these feelings. So yeah, so it's been lovely. And I just, in the course of doing this podcast, I was like, I have found that giving language to each other is one of the best things that we can do, especially when we're in areas like adoption conversations or mental health conversations where your vocabulary just may be kind of small. And so even though your feelings don't need a vocabulary, you need to, like, your friends need a vocabulary and your loved ones need a vocabulary. So that's why I decided to share it. But yeah, at the end of the day, it was mostly just for me to say, this is how I'm feeling. And I think the song is more aspirational than I actually feel. So it's kind of nice to listen to myself back and be like, hey, that's me saying this to myself. Like, don't give up on hope and you'll be okay, basically.
So wait, are you saying that you just wrote and sang and did everything this over the weekend?
Yeah. I just sat down. It was Saturday night. Yeah, I just sat down to write it, and I just wrote the line. I feel like I'm falling. I feel like I'm falling apart. And then before I knew it, it was 12:30 and the song was done mostly. And I was like, oh well, I gotta go to bed and do church in the morning. But I'm pretty happy with this. So yeah.
That's pretty impressive. I don't know who writes and produces a song over a weekend and then I don't know. I'm pretty impressed. I thought this is something you'd been working on for like months or something.
Nope. So, it just poured straight out of me, which also I will say, wow. Anytime I hear somebody say like, yeah, I wrote the song in 10 minutes. I'm like, oh, so you didn't care about the song at all? You didn't like do a double take or whatever? But like, so it wasn't 10 minutes, but it was surprisingly fast even for myself. So yeah.
But it was very good.
Thanks, man.
Yeah, I loved it. Yeah, I thought it was really good, especially for, like Nathan said, the quick turnaround. We're just talking about quick turnarounds, with the podcast, and here you are turning around a fully produced, fully mixed and engineered song over a weekend.
I'm even more impressed now.
I think it is true though that even though you did this and you poured the song out songwriting wise over a short period, it is something that you've been kind of building up to because it's your story and your journey. And even like you just said, it is something that it's aspirational for you because it's not even necessarily how you maybe fully feel in the moment. What has been the reaction from just not even adoptees, but other people in your circle? I know you said you've been getting some nice letters, but especially connecting with the lyrics, which I got wrong. So obviously I didn't connect with it. But for other people that did, what have they been saying? What's been the feedback for you?
I mean, it's generally just positive. Like, hey, this song is great. Mostly it's, hey, this song is actually pretty good. Like, I would listen to this, which I think it's the layman's term of being like, this is a, professional thing, mm-hmm. Like I would listen to this. So in some ways it's kind of it's a well-meaning put down, but it's also like kind of the highest compliment that you'll receive from like your best friends. It's like, yeah, I would spend money on this. It's not just So
sorry,
that's generally been the reaction.
One of those comments was from me. I remember I said something. I'd listen to this if I didn't even know you. And I thought about that afterwards, and I'm thinking, oh, that could have sounds a little backhanded. I guess I meant it's really good, and I like it. But it means even more knowing that I know you. So I guess
it's one of those things where I think this is true of a lot of people in the creative field when they make the jump from hobbyist to amateur or amateur to hobbyist to professional, right? Like when you make that jump to professional, and you show your friends and people and like they've seen your journey, they're like, oh, hey, like Nathan, that's a pretty good picture. Like, I would actually like buy that from you. And be like, well, that's the point. Is I am now a professional photographer. Pay me for my services, you know. But like when you just get started, they're like, yeah, no, I mean, yeah, this is good. This is, you know, whatever. So that's what I mean. Like it's super well meaning, and it is kind of a put down, but like it's just very funny to me.
I always like it when I write when I photograph a picture and it's like someone looks at it and goes, wow, that's a really good picture. You must have a good camera.
Yeah.
So I guess that would be the same thing if I said to you, it's like, wow, that was a really good song. You must have a really good keyboard or a guitar or something like that.
Yeah.
Or
Or
that
it'd be
microphone is just
it would be
working
like,
magic.
oh man, that's such a great picture. Did a professional take it? And like, yeah,
yeah.
me. I am the professional. It was very funny.
Have you had anybody come up to you that didn't know you did music like that and was like, who'd you work with? Like, what studio did you record that in? Or does everybody generally know?
No, only
your
Nathan was
jam?
like, "Oh, you actually wrote this song. It's not just a cover." which, to be fair to Nathan, I pretty much
Sorry.
exclusively do covers, so it's not like out of
That
the
is
question.
That is true. That's funny. Well, I freaking love this song. I listened to it a ton already. We know Nathan does in the text chain. We saw the love that he was showing for it. And yeah, I think it's really exciting the amount of people that have been posting about it. People that I wouldn't even necessarily have even expected, I suppose. So just from what I've seen and from your reposts. So I just think that's awesome. And that's why I'm sitting like this, because I think it's so awesome, just enamored with the song itself, and that you felt the courage and the strength enough to share it with other people, you know, because I know music for you especially is very close to your heart. I think stuff that you create yourself, I don't think you're quick to just throw it out there. I'm somebody, when I make music, I'm like, I thought this sounded, as soon as I recorded, I'm like, this is dope, and I'm like, I gotta put this out immediately. And hindsight being what it is, probably a mistake, but I think the way that you approach it, I really appreciate. So that's why I wanted to say that.
So go listen to it, people. If you haven't heard it, it's on Spotify and iTunes. It's called To the Dawn. It'll be a movie soon.
Wow.
Pressure.
I've never
Soundtrack.
heard of that trajectory, but that'd be.
I like it. I just bought the rights to this song to make what, a new song? No, a movie.
Yeah. So yeah, I think it's. I appreciate you saying that, Patrick. It's funny, like the thing that I struggle with most is lyrics, because I get into my own head, and I'm like, oh, it's not good enough. Like, it's not, you know, this isn't like a Grammy Award winning quality thing, you know, and it is obviously unfair for me to hold myself to that standard, but that doesn't stop me from trying. So this is the first song where, I mean, literally, I think I stopped getting in my own way. And I was just like, you know, it was one of those things where in the verses, there's only 3 sections of 4 bars instead of 4. So it's a little off balance for me. And I was like, well, the Beatles did it in Yesterday. So like, it's fine, you know? And yeah. And I, you know, I wanted to try certain things, and I was listening to lots of things, but I think really, I wanted to express how it felt like, or how it feels really for me to be in a depressed state. That it's literally, sometimes I just wake up and I'm like, oh, today I'm sad. And there's nothing I can do about it besides, like, you know, kind of soldier on and do my life. And it's not like a thing that I make a big deal out of, but you know, for me, I find that my cycles are usually anywhere from 2 to 10-ish days, maybe a little bit longer. And you know, in this moment, it's just been like, oh, it's been like 4 or 5 weeks now that I felt like this, you know, and a lot of it's been just about everything that's happening in America surrounding, you know, Asian American violence and the way that that's uniquely impacted me. And, you know, it's a lot of different factors. So it's just like I wasn't expecting that. And then I woke up and was like, oh, it's been a long time. And nothing has changed, you know? And then I specifically wrote the bridge just because I've been wrestling with, you know, being an adoptee and coming out of the fog. And I was really excited to write about, the idea of the dawn. That the dawn for me has always been such a moment of hope and a thing that you know, whether the phrase is light breaking through, or if you go to Greek mythology, there's a god, I don't remember if it's Hermes or who, but this god literally pulls the dawn from the night. That has always been a phrase that stuck with me, is pulling the dawn from the night, and that you could so forcefully, through grit and determination, pull a thing that maybe doesn't want to come, into being, and that would then affect the whole world and help the whole world like get on with their day, so I was really excited about that, and just to write about being an adoptee, to write about depression, and like we said, this is a thing that a lot of us struggle with, is mental health. And so I was just excited to be like, hey, I now feel comfortable saying I am a content creator for Korean adoptees. I will say, previous guest Nick Capicoto commented and said, can't wait for the next single. I was like, you'll be waiting another 10 years.
Sorry, Nick. We appreciate your support, but you're going to be
not a
supporting this one
songwriter.
song.
I'm just like, just play this on repeat. That's all.
Nick, if you're still listening in 10 years, then KJ will put a song out. I'm putting it on record right now.
That's true.
That's gonna happen. So, all right. Well, Nathan or
Yep.
KJ,
We are the same.
we love the song. People love the song. Really glad to hear it, and really glad that we can use the song as a springboard into our episode, which has nothing to do with music, has
True.
everything to do with food, which is another type of content to be created and then consumed. We have a great show. Cannot wait to get into it with Matt Delatour, an executive chef, Korean adoptee in Philadelphia currently. Also the host of one of the coolest and most inclusive clubhouse rooms, the Clubhouse Coffee Shop. Really excited to get into it with Matt. We talk about a lot of different things, specifically from that food lens, and he has some pretty crazy stories about that, and also how adoption has played a role in that. So we're gonna roll that clip.
Boom.
Bop, bop, ba-da, bop. We are here today with a very special guest. I am excited to have this gentleman come on our show. We are here with Matt Delatour. Matt, thank you for joining the Janchi Show today. How you doing?
Going on. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate that.
Yeah,
Absolutely. I connected with Matt on Clubhouse, which you've heard us talk about a little bit, and it's been really great to connect with him. And he's a mover and a shaker. He gets things going on Clubhouse. It's really amazing.
Yeah, my phone blows up all the time because Matt's on. Today Matt's on again. And so yeah, you're running Clubhouse. It feels like
He really is running it. But we'll get to that. I want to start, Matt, with hearing a little bit about your origin story. Tell us a little bit about maybe where you were adopted from and where you grew up and what that was like.
Yeah. So I was born in Seoul, Korea in 1991. Was adopted when I was 5 months old. I was supposed to be adopted when I was 4 months old, but a week before I was supposed to come, my mom got into a really bad car accident and collapsed her lung. And she called the agency and was like, "Do not put that kid on a plane right now." So they pushed it back a month. So I came here when I was 5 months old and was raised in Berkeley Heights, New Jersey. It's this relatively small town in North Jersey, what some people call Central Jersey, but it's North Jersey. But yeah, so I grew up there, and then as soon as I turned 18, left my parents' house, moved to Philly, and I've been here since. That's pretty much the origin story. I'm sorry, Patrick. I know you're eating tacos.
No, it's
that was
okay.
supposed to be a longer answer.
I got one bite in, and it was good.
Busted.
And then I was listening. I didn't want to take any more bites because I wanted to hear what you had to say. That's awesome, though, man. We've had a few people now from the East Coast. Is this our second Jersey guest? Oh wait, no. Where's Brandon live? Does he live in Jersey?
He is originally from New Jersey, but he doesn't. I don't think he lives there anymore.
Or originally, I guess, because Matt does not now live
I don't
in
know.
New
Brandon,
Jersey.
you can at me.
and the
later.
Nunchikos are over in
Oh, yeah.
And the
DC
DMV.
area. Yeah,
East
so-
Coast, I said. East Coast.
Yeah.
Anyways.
Oh, all right.
That's really
What
awesome.
is geography?
Yeah. That's what we talk about on the show is geography. The geography of the East Coast.
I mean, we don't not talk about it, actually.
That is true. We do talk about it. Matt, tell us a little bit about what it was like growing up in your small town in New Jersey. I think a lot of stories that we've shared here and a lot of our stories growing up come from, those small, predominantly white spaces and not a lot of diversity. What was that experience like for you growing up?
Yeah, it was definitely very interesting. Because I was one of a handful of Asians in my grade. There were a decent amount of Asian families in the town that I grew up in, but a lot of them were either older or they didn't have kids in my grade. So it was super interesting because growing up in a town where pretty much everyone knows everyone, you kind of like grow up feeling white, which is really, I don't know, it's looking back at it, I'm just like I cringe a lot just thinking about this stuff that I've done, and how I used to act back in the day. But yeah, so it's like I pretended that I was white. I did things that were quote unquote white. Um, the friends that I had, I felt more comfortable talking to the white folks than I did with the Asians because I didn't really feel like I was included within that group. And I think that's like a huge like adoptee thing, just having that feeling of not really belonging in any sort of group. So you kind of just pick and choose which ones you want to associate yourself with. Um, so yeah, that was I wouldn't say tough, but it was definitely an interesting feeling. And like I've kind of like tried to compensate for that and build a lot of Asian friendships now. Most of my Asians are predominant, or most of my friends are predominantly Asians.
Most of my Asians, baby.
Yes.
That's
Just
awesome.
walk into a
heritage of
club.
your
Where my
parents.
Asians at?
Yeah. I just have a
Like
whole
Matt,
handful
no,
of
that's
Asians.
problematic.
I think something you said there, just like, I felt, or I think you said it was like I felt white. We all just kind of nodded at the same time. And like you said, I think it's something a lot of adoptees, transracial adoptees go through when you grow up in a space like that. That really resonated with me. Something that I dealt with where I was always just wanting to hang out with my white friends and only the people that I grew up with and things like that, even after I got into college. So I think even now at 30, what you said about overcompensating to like make up for it or compensating to make up for it, that's what I'm doing right now. I'm like, all right, where are all the Asian people? And now when I look at the people that I hang or talk to, I guess I shouldn't say hang out with, but talk to, it's a lot of Asian people. And like my white friends, even though they are my friends and I use that term liberally as I did last episode, I think it's just an interesting dynamic. So yeah, just wanted to say that really resonated with me. You said it was tough. I don't know if you want to elaborate on that feeling of otherness, I guess, from the Asian community that you were surrounded by when you were growing up. What was that, if you don't mind elaborating on kind of what that was like, specifically from your perspective?
Yeah. So like most of my friends, like I said, were white. I did have a couple of Asian friends. My best friend in like fourth grade up until about middle school, he was Korean. And it was tough because it wasn't tough like while it was happening. It was more like looking back at it now that I think about it, it was tough just because like he was like one of my closest friends and he was Korean like I am, but I never felt like that kind of connection between our Koreanness. It was more just because, oh yeah, this is my friend who lives down the street and he's super accessible to hang out with. Like just like any sort of like best friends you have growing up, like it's usually like location based. And like I remember I remember his mom would make us mandu and like that was always great and everything, but I never really associated that with being Korean. So every time I look back, I'm just like, oh shit, like I had like ample opportunities to kind of just like learn what it means to be Korean. Yeah, so like it's tough looking back at that and realizing like I essentially had an ajima that I could have like taken full advantage of, but I didn't at all. It was kind of just like, oh yeah, shit, food, okay, I'll eat. And that was pretty much it. And then we went and played video games.
That makes sense, especially judging from where you ended up. How food was something that you've been would have been drawn to. In that space, did you feel any pressure to want to hang out with the other Asians and the Koreans? Like you said, your Korean buddy was your best friend growing up, but did you feel like any self pressure or any outside pressure to hang out or associate?
No, growing up, like I think that the fact that like when I realized I was adopted, it was more so the feeling that it was just like I wanted to erase my Asianness. Um, and the only reason why I was friends with Asians were because like they were close to where I live and I could go hang out with them whenever I wanted to. But like even during school, like I would hang out with other people that weren't Asian as opposed to those friends. And I think that's kind of why we lost touch and we gained touch again. like we got back in touch when we all like grew up and we became adults, and they live in New York and I live in Philly. So every time I would go to New York, I'd actually hang out with them and like have like a meaningful hangout session friendship with them. But yeah, it was like the whole erasure of like my Asianness was a very big part of my childhood because I didn't want to be Korean. I wanted to associate myself more with my parents, with my older sister and my friends. And I think it's because like looking back, um, I was almost like, I guess to a certain degree jealous of my sister, not necessarily because she was biological, but because she was successful and I was essentially just a piece of shit. Um, and I think part of the feelings as to why I did the things that I did growing up was because I was different, because I was adopted. So it was like I could either go one of two ways. I could go the direction that my sister went, or I could just be a complete rebel and just fight back and just have that whole like you're not my parents mentality. And I chose the latter.
That really resonates with me too, because I feel like I was, instead of going completely rebellious, I was trying to walk the line of acceptance, and I wanted to be accepted by not only my friends but my parents and just really anybody that I came across, because like you had said, I was erasing and like actively erasing and dismissing my Asian identity because there was no one else that looked like me except for my adopted sister, and we were far enough apart in grade level that we never had enough interaction to really form a meaningful relationship outside of we're brother and sister, I guess. So I definitely get that, and I definitely get kind of the jealousy because my sister, while younger, is much more successful than me, and I think that was always kind of the case. So then I felt like I was competing with that too, trying to be successful in a way. Um, you had also mentioned on your form that not only do you have a biological older sister, but you have two adopted siblings as well. What's your relationship like with them, if you care to speak on that?
Yeah. So I'm pretty close with most of like all of my siblings. Um, my older sister was very, very much like a second mom. She was the one who was valedictorian of the high school. She got a full scholarship to go to college. She's getting her PhD, MD or MD PhD right now, from an Ivy League school. So I guess it's almost like it's almost intimidating to kind of like try and match her. So like my relationship with her is it's good, but I get along way better with my younger sister, because I think we kind of both went through an almost rebellious type period, and like she kind of understands me. We have very similar personalities. We're pretty we're pretty extroverted. So I tell yeah. So today she turned 21 today, so now I can actually like take her out to a bar and stuff and go have a drink with her. Whereas if I ever said anything remotely close to like, "Hey, Lori, who's my older sister, do you want to go? Do you want to go get a drink?" She would look at me and she's like, "What? Why are you asking me that?" Like the only alcohol my sister drinks is when she takes communion at church.
The best kind.
Yeah. Yeah, and then when it comes to my older brother, so my older brother, he has a couple of neurological disorders, so it takes a little bit more time for him to process and understand things. I love him to death. Like he's a great dude. He's one of the nicest people that I've ever met. It's just connecting with him on certain things is a little bit tougher, which is why I usually like say that, yeah, I'm closest with my younger sister.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. And I think your sibling dynamics are really interesting. Seeing not only have a biological sibling related to your parent or your adoptive parents, but then having two adopted siblings, both from different countries in Asia, not even the same, I think is a really interesting dynamic. And not only that, but to have multiple adopted siblings, while doesn't always really mean that it's going to be great, like a great relationship or anything growing up. I was wondering, in your case, as you were growing up and, dealing with erasure of identity, did you see similar things in your siblings' journeys as well at that point? Not that they were like feeling or acting in the same way, but did you see any of that? And did that also influence kind of what you were feeling and acting at that time period?
Yeah, I think I saw it a little bit more in my little sister. Um, she kind of went through a similar phase that I did, but in the day and age of social media, she had access to like other people who were adopted. I don't think she ever really took advantage of that, but she had the accessibility of it, and she had the accessibility of being able to like look things up. If she wanted to do a birth search, she could. And I think it took her a little bit less time to process all of that, and she's still processing it today. We have conversations every now and again about it and stuff, especially when it comes to like what it means to be Asian and kind of like certain things that happens to people of color. Because like my sister, my older sister, and my parents don't necessarily understand it as much. They don't really understand the whole like getting bullied just for being Asian type thing.
Yeah.
They're kind of blinded in that sense. So we do have those conversations every now and again. And my little sister also had a club foot, so she did get bullied for that as well. Which yeah, and then like me just being Asian, like we both got bullied. And I remember there was this one time she was in, I think it was either 8th grade or just in 9th grade in high school. She had texted me about this dude who was bullying her. So we got to like actually have a conversation about that. I think that's one of the first times I actually had a really in-depth conversation with her about something like this. And me being the older brother, I was like, I'm an hour and a half away from you. I will literally go rent a car right now and beat the living piss out of this dude. If he ever says anything like that again, like you just call me, and I will come and like I'll come and just help you out with that. So I think like having that conversation built a lot of trust between us to have these types of conversations. Whereas like the typical mom, like adopted mom, just being like, "Oh no, we love you. You're special. We chose you. You're so special to us." When it's like in reality, like all you really want to hear is, "Yeah, fuck that dude. Like, don't don't listen to him, or just like fight back." Like that's all you really need to hear, whether you do it or not. Um, so I was that little bit of an outlet for her, which brought us together a lot.
Yeah. It's just that support system you need. Yeah, you may not act on, you're probably not going to retaliate in most cases, especially physically, but just knowing that, man, my bro's got my back is big time. You know, that's something that, yeah, I definitely get that. So moving out of your town and at 18 and going out into the world, still, I'm assuming dealing with identity and the erasure or coming to terms with your Asian identity. What was that? How did that start to take off for you? So we know you work in food, so I didn't know. I was wondering if you could speak a little bit about what that journey was like after leaving.
Yeah. I spent a year up in Northeast Pennsylvania, because I went to college up there for a year before I transferred to Philly. So that also was one of those very, very white towns. There were a couple pockets of other people, but for the most part, it was a very white town. It was a very white college. I think Asians made up about, I think it was like 5% of the general population of the school. So even then there weren't a lot of Asians. So I never really understood, like I never really got that like culture shock until I came to Philly. Like I'd see it going to New York and stuff. Like um, I'd see a lot of different people of a lot of different ethnicities and heard a lot of different languages and stuff, but it never really like processed to me because I was so enamored by being in New York and having like going to the city to go ice skating with my family. But when I actually moved to Philly, like it was just one giant culture shock because my first place that I lived in was right in downtown Philadelphia, so there was a huge population of Asians there because of like a lot of the UPenn grad students live in that area. So I saw a lot of Asians. I saw a lot of other people. I saw a lot of people of color that I just wasn't necessarily used to back in my hometown. And it was confusing because it's like, well, do who do I go talk to? Like if I go to a bar, like do I talk to you or do I go to you? And usually I would gravitate towards the white people again. And like I would even go as far as just being like, I refuse to date an Asian person because I don't want to be associated with that. Like, I forget the exact reason that I would tell people, but I was always just like, yeah, I don't really want to date an Asian person because I don't want to associate myself with that. I don't feel Asian, so why would I want to date an Asian? And then I think working in restaurants kind of like was the thing that started to open my eyes to it because like I started to want to be a chef because of the culture of food and what food does to people and how it brings people together. So that was one of the main reasons why I wanted to get into food. Um, and then I started learning about, like, because I only knew like Americanized what food meant to them. So it was like, yeah, we eat as quickly as possible and then just go do our separate things. But then I started working in restaurants where it's like, no, we're going to sit here for 3 hours and just hang out and eat food and chill. And that started to open my eyes into Asian cuisines. And I started really diving into that. And I guess I took like that step where it's like I'm going from an Americanized version to a Korean American version, because the first restaurant that I worked at that wasn't a Mediterranean or French or Italian restaurant, was a Korean American fusion gastropub. And I think that a part of the reason why I decided to go that route was because it was so scary to just be like, all right, I'm going to go dive right into Korean food, just because I wasn't like sure of anything. Like I didn't know the food. I've eaten it before, but I never really understood the food. I didn't understand the culture around it. So I still took that baby step to get up to that level.
So what was that? Talk about that first baby step. What was it like your first time working in that kitchen and starting to first learn about not just the food, but like really learning about the food and the culture behind it?
It was very stressful. Essentially because okay, I hope my former boss doesn't hear this. I lied about my knowledge of Korean food. I told them that I had experience working in Korean restaurants and like cooking Korean food. I never had a single lick of experience.
0% experience.
Yeah. And so the best part about the job is like I was applying for a kitchen manager position. So there was already an executive chef. I was literally just like the day-to-day operations person. So I went in for the interview. I did my thing because like working in the kitchen is super easy because everything's prepped out. All you really have to do is cook the food. And it was just as simple as like following directions, which is easy. That's not that hard to do, but you don't really understand like the culture behind it. But that's another point. But so I go into the interview, which they call them stages in restaurants.
All right.
And I do my interview. I kill it, obviously. And the same night I get a call from the executive chef, and he's like, "Hey Matt, I just want to let you know that I'm putting my notice in to leave the restaurant. But I want you to expect, like, I'm going to recommend you to be promoted from kitchen manager. So we're going to hire you as a kitchen manager, but in about a month and a half, you're going to be the executive chef."
Yikes.
So I read this text message, and I'm just like, oh boy. So I wasn't working at the time. I had just left my other job, but I didn't tell them that. So I told them, I was like, all right, I'm going to put my 2 weeks notice in, and then I can start working. But yeah, I'll take the position. And for those next 2 weeks, I didn't do anything work related because I wasn't working. I literally just sat on Google for 2 weeks and just Google search Korean food and learned as much as I possibly could in the short amount of time that I could. And then the first day I go there, I'm just trying to act all confident, just be like, oh yeah, I know what I'm doing. Yeah, kimchi, yeah. I got you. Yeah, I know a recipe. It's not from Google. I know a recipe.
Not from Mungchi.com.
Yeah, no. Yo, but dude, the funniest thing about that though is my boss bought me that Mangchi book.
Oh,
and he's
really?
like, you can use this to base your recipes on. And I'm like, okay, this is good. I didn't look at the entire website prior to this job.
I was like, bro, you think I'm not subscribed already?
So yeah, so I that job, like I was there for a year, and I essentially like faked it till I made it type of thing, and like one of the first dishes I created for that menu, because like my boss was pretty much like, hey, like we like this menu and stuff, but we want you to change it up. There are 4 dishes out of 16 dishes that we want to keep, but you can change whatever you want. And so the first dish that I ever created that I put on that menu was a my version of like a mandu. So I made pan-seared mandu with doenjang aioli on the bottom, and it was like a strawberry agrodolce on top. So it was like you get a vinegariness, but a sweetness with the syrup, and then like the fermentiness from the doenjang on the bottom and stuff. But what I actually did was I didn't make mandu. I made gyoza, and he was like, "Oh, like this recipe is like really good. It's delicious. Like this mandu is like a little bit different." And I was like, "Oh yeah. I tweaked the recipe a little bit." But I essentially just made gyoza, and I'm just like, fuck, I read the wrong recipe because I didn't put the japchae noodles in. I didn't put any tofu in it. It was like straight up just pork, scallions, and sesame oil. But he was like, "Yo, this is so good." And we had some like Instagram food influencers come in. They're like, "Oh, this is like some of the best mando I've ever had." And I'm like, "Yeah, it is. Yeah, this is totally true. Like, don't worry. Yeah, that's
Just
good."
casually trying to not lose your job.
Yeah.
So really quickly, just what is mandu? Like as it's supposed to be, not its gyoza form.
Compared to
I'll-
gyoza.
Ooh, good question. Good
For
question.
our
Yeah.
users, because I
I-
know
For our
I've
I
used
only
those,
know
but
it for our listeners. No, for
users.
Yes.
I only know it as like pork mandu, but I don't actually know what that means. I'm sure I read it one time and that just stuck in my head.
Yeah, so like mandu is like Korean dumplings essentially. It's a little bit different because each region, like or each country that has some form of dumpling puts a little bit different spin on it. So in Korea, like for the Korean mandu, usually there's like ground pork, japchae noodles all cut up, scallions, tofu, and some seasonings and stuff. Sometimes they put mushrooms in there. So it's essentially like a regular like gyoza or dumpling that you would get from a Chinese restaurant, but with japchae noodles and tofu in it. And then it's either boiled or pan fried, or boiled or deep fried, as opposed to pan fried.
Oh, okay.
So the dumpling part's still the same. It's just the ingredients on the inside. Okay.
Yeah.
Hearing you talk
Dude,
about it, I would
japchae-
never have guessed that you did not know anything about it when you first went into your first.
Well, he was
job.
reading that off of Google just right
Oh,
there.
right.
Yeah, blame Google. Blame the tech industry's white developers. It's not Matt's fault.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I mean, and you got the job because you looked the part too. So you gotta give props to that.
Yeah.
Well, that was one of the things I was going to say I loved about that story is that I'm looking at it from this adoptee lens of like you're going to like cook in a Korean restaurant and they're like, "Hey, we want you to you're going to be the chef now." And you got to and you're like, "I don't know anything about this, but I want this job, so I'm just going to say that I do." And I feel like as an adoptee, that really makes sense to me because sometimes when you're trying to like make your way into the Asian American community, you kind of have to fake it a little bit sometimes. And I don't know if anybody would really care that I said that or care for me saying that, because I do think it's really important to understand the culture and everything that goes with it when you start to engage. But I think that for a lot of adoptees, it's really like, what's a way to approach? And I love that story where you're just like, fuck it, I'm just going to do it. And you did it.
The thing about that though is like I always associated that with like as a restaurant thing, because a lot of the times people will like upgrade their resume per se and say like they've done this. Like the first restaurant that I ever worked in was back in my hometown. And I was like 16 or 17 years old, I forget. But I go in there and I go talk to the chef and I'm like, "Hey, I'm in college. I'm not in high school, but I need a summer internship for college credits. Can I get a job here?" And I didn't have any paperwork or anything. He's like, "Yeah, you can work here." It was a summer internship that I was supposed to work the entire summer at. So like the 3 months that I was out from high school, I worked there. They didn't ask for any paperwork. I didn't sign any underage forms because they just assumed that I was over 18. So that was very illegal. And then a month into me actually working there, I cut my finger off on a warped cutting board. So I got
Yikes.
so I was out of work from them for a month. Got unemployment, or I got workers' compensation for like a month and a half. And I was getting paid more than I actually was working there. And like, so I was thriving like this high school student, like 17-year-old high school student, making like $1,200 every 2 weeks. And I'm just like, oh shit, okay, cool. I'm not even doing anything. I'm making this money. Like, I don't even care. Like, just give it to me. So then when I was able to work, like to go back to work, because the doctor's like, yeah, you need to take a month and a half off because you hit some nerves. And you're like, if you want mobility back in your finger, you're not going to be able to like move it that much. You just need to let it rest. And I was like, okay. So after the month and a half, and my doctor gave me the okay to go back, I went back to the restaurant. I was like, hey, I have to go back to school. So I quit. So then I just stopped doing that. But yeah, that was my first job at a restaurant. But it was also,
and that's been every job since.
Yeah, pretty much.
This episode's turning into Confessions of Matt.
This is how Matt hustles.
I love it. Yeah, the hustle of Matt. I love it.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
And that's how I got my first bartending job. So it was assumed, like I told this bar that I was like, yeah, I worked at a bar for 2 years. It was just some college bar, but I was drinking there for 2 years. I wasn't working there.
It's kind of the same thing.
Yeah.
Kind of.
It's okay.
But
I got a job at a bar too as a bartender, but the reason the guy hired me is because I had a degree in computer information systems.
That doesn't make any sense.
And he wanted to ask me questions about developing a website.
There you
So
go.
he
he,
wanted
he
free
used
IT.
me as a resource to ask questions while I was his
So he
bartender.
paid you money to teach him about stuff while you worked for him. I like
Exactly.
it.
So he paid me bartender wages, but he got my computer knowledge in the back for free. So
Better
Yeah,
than
that
going to
makes sense.
college.
yeah. So I didn't mind.
Gotta
I
get
just
that
wanted to
money.
bartend.
Well, I really respect the hustle. I love it. I think that, and I think it obviously reflects in what you've been able to do with that work. On your Clubhouse profile, you have that you've been featured and won a few different things, which I think is really cool. How did you go from, I'm just, let me work here, to, hey, I am the chef that people come to for different things? How did you go from there to there?
Yeah. So like I said, like I've wanted to be a chef since I was 9. So like I knew exactly what I wanted to do. So I think like to a certain degree, I almost got an upper hand on things. Like when I went to culinary school, I was already 3 years senior of working in a restaurant. So I had the experience, I had the knowledge that most of the people that were in the school didn't. And I used that to my advantage because I ended up dropping out after 6 months and just started to work. So I didn't even have to deal with going to culinary school. I had the experience already, so I started working. And then I like from 19 to 26, when I became one of the youngest chefs in one of the youngest executive chefs in Philadelphia, like I busted my ass just like going to working in as many restaurants as I could and going to as many kitchens as possible. Like I'd get in touch with some of the more known chefs in Philly or New York and just be like, hey, like I have a free day today. Like I'm off of work. Can I come stage in your kitchen? You don't have to pay me. Just give me some food at the end of the night. And like chefs love that. Like chefs love to see people just come in and work for free. And all you have to do is give them a dinner. So I would do that on my days off. I've worked with some of the best chefs in Philly, just staging there for a day, and job offers came from that too. Because they saw like my work ethic, they saw how much I pushed myself, like how much pressure I put on myself to be as good as like I could possibly be. Because like I'm very much 100% a perfectionist. Like it shows. Like when it comes to work, everything has to be perfect. But if you come to my apartment, it's a fucking train wreck. So like me being the perfectionist that I am, I'm just like, I had to bust my ass, and like it got me places. Like I have good relationships with chefs, like Michelin star chefs in New York. They don't do Michelin stars in Philly, but some of the top chefs in Philly, like I have good relationships with them, and they can help me out. And then just using that experience to kind of like move forward and figure out what the next step is for me.
So while you were on I think that's fascinating. I think the hustle that it takes. I've worked in the industry a few different times, most recently in Chicago.
Wait, did you really?
Yeah, I think that...
Do we know this, Nathan? Is this new information?
I don't remember you working at a restaurant.
Don't worry about it. It's
What were
fine.
you doing?
I was
Well,
bartending. So
I'm sure Sarah will listen to this and she'll be like, so what did Patrick do?
Oh yeah,
Hey,
they
I
keep
don't
trying
know.
to figure out what I do for a job currently, and I
I literally don't know anything about our co-hosts.
But I think I really respect the hustle that it takes to be able to do something like that, and to go and do the things that you've done. It really, I mean, it really speaks to the work that you put in to get to these points. During this period of hustle, what was your experience like engaging with the community outside of the industry? Were you meeting most of your friends and the people, your acquaintances there? And then was that your first step into the Asian American community or the adoptee community, or did that come later?
So that actually kind of came later because like during this whole hustle period, I didn't really have that many friends. Like I knew people, I would hang out with people, but they were usually coworkers. So my coworkers were usually the people that I hung out with, and the ones that I would consider my friends. But as soon as I left the restaurant, or as soon as they left the restaurant, like we'd keep in touch for a couple months after that. But then it would kind of just drop off because like I would never see them because working in the industry sucks. You don't have any free time, and when you do, you're pretty much just drunk, so you forget everything.
Also true.
So it was like a very, very happy coincidence that the job where I pretended I knew Korean food was also the restaurant where the Philadelphia Korean American adoptee community goes for dinner once a month. And the owner was like, hey, like we have all these adoptees that come for dinner once a month, and we curate a special menu for them. The next time they come, we want to introduce you. And so I formed a couple friendships and relationships through that adoptee community. One of them actually being Kevin Kreiter from Bling Empire. I cooked for him and hung out with him a couple times before he moved out to LA. So that was pretty cool. Like that was my first experience outside of my family, where I actually got to hang out with Asians and Asian adoptees. And that kind of just like spurred this whole, like, I guess, movement in my head where I was just like, I want to learn a lot more about myself. I want to learn a lot more about Korea. That's when I filed for like to get my adoption papers from Holt, and then get the adoption papers from Holt Korea. So yeah, it was very much just a happy coincidence. Like I didn't even know there was like a Korean Adoptee Association at all, let alone one in Philly and one that actually eats at the restaurant that I'm working at. So yeah, it just really blossomed into this whole like thing where I was just like, I want to learn a lot more about who I am as a person and where I came from.
And what have you then in those 3 years? What have you been diving into in the community since then?
So initially, when I first realized that like I wanted to learn a lot more about me, I sent in my paperwork to get my like file, looked at my file, realized that the story that I had thought initially about my adoption was not true. It was more like, so I thought that I was abandoned at a train station, and then someone found me and brought me to an orphanage. When in reality, it was my mom was 15 years old when she had me. She had me at a hospital, and she like Holt was already in contact with her. And pretty much as soon as I was born, I was brought to the orphanage. So that was just like a huge like brick wall just slamming right into me, just because like I was 26 years old thinking like this entire story, and then all of a sudden it's something completely different. And that intrigued me a little bit more because I was like, I initially thought that I would never be able to find my parents, but now this gave me like a little like light at the end of the tunnel where it's like it's a possibility. It's just like, how long is that tunnel? So I went through a whole process of like figuring out exactly what I want to do. As soon as I got my paperwork, and as soon as I found out that my mom was like, they had at least a little bit of information about my mom, I requested paperwork to do a formal birth search, and kept that in a drawer for 2 years. But in the process of that, I got super close to the adoptee community in Philadelphia, made some really, really good friends there. I've worked at Korean adoptee camps, teaching them how to cook Korean food when I actually finally realized or learned how to make Korean food. So I did that.
Thank you, Google.
Yeah, and Mangchi.
And
And then I started branching out like from the adoptee community and started just like building my confidence into like actually making friends that are actually Korean. Well, not actually Korean, but like Korean. And like spoke the language and knew what it means to be Korean, like growing up with Korean parents and stuff, growing in a Korean household. So I think, I hate to admit this, but I used to be a person that wore shoes in my house. until I got verbally assaulted by my friend for stepping 1 inch inside of her apartment for wearing my shoes. And she's like, "What the hell are you doing? Take your shoes off." And like that whole process of like explaining why, I was like, this makes a lot of sense. My parents are disgusting. Sorry, Mom. But yeah, so like I started learning about that. Like I would eat a lot of Korean food. I went on like a whole like regional Korean food restaurant tour, I guess, which is how I was able to get in contact with Chris Cho and meet him. So he was a very big mentor when it came to like learning how to cook Korean food. I traveled up to New York, went to a Koreatown as often as possible. And yeah, then I taught at this one camp and got to meet all these Korean adoptees who are kind of like learning about themselves and the culture through the camp. And that kind of just sparked this thing in me, and was like, the paperwork that I have to go do this birth search, I think I'm ready to send it in. So I sent it in 2019. I sent it in, and they were like, it takes about 2 to 3 weeks to process that, to do a whole formal search. But we'll let you know. So I was like, all right, I can forget about this and kind of just let it do its thing. And I'll hear back eventually. I heard back a week later, and they're like, yeah, we found your mom. Here's a little bit of information about her. We like, obviously they can't give names or like addresses or anything like that. And they're like, yeah, why don't you write a letter that you want to send to her? Just make sure there's no identifying information, and then send that to us. Send a couple pictures of you growing up, and you currently, in a couple pictures of your family, and we'll send them over to her. And they're like, it just like, there's no, they told me when I sent it in, they're like, there's no real determining factor on when we're going to hear back, if we ever do hear back, because it's all dependent on my birth mom and what she wants to do. And I was like, okay, that's good. I have a lot of time to process. And then 24 hours later, they're like, your mom called. I was like, oh
my God.
Well, fuck. Okay. Wow. I'm like, I'm at work, and I'm just like, I get this email from them, and they're like, yeah, your mom called us, and like asking a little bit more information about like me. And it's like, she was super like wary about getting in touch with the orphanage, because she got married, and she has a 15-year-old son. So my half brother. So she was super wary about that, about even calling to begin with. She actually hung up on them initially, but then she saw the pictures of me, and she's like, that looks exactly like my brother, who passed away a couple years ago from a car accident.
Damn.
And she's like, I have to like call back and get more information. And so she talked to the person at the orphanage, and she's like, yeah, I'm going to write a letter, and I'll send it to you. And then it gets translated to me. So I got a letter from her. I think it was about a month later, I got my first letter from her, which like I was not prepared for at all. Like none of me was ready for that. Like I was reading that at work. That's another thing about the restaurant industry. Just like, you never have like time to yourself. So I was reading it at work, and I'm just like standing behind the line, like cooking these people's food and reading it on my phone, just like cooking these people food, like crying into their bibimbap and stuff. I'm just like, I shouldn't be doing this, but I can't resist. I have to read it. After that, like I wrote another letter back from her, not expecting to hear from her for a little bit, just because the process takes a little while. And I get a letter Christmas Eve of 2019 from her with a picture of her. She says that she doesn't like to get her picture taken, but she sent me her work ID picture. So that was the first picture that I got of her. And like, it's a little scary how much I look like her, but I showed my little sister. My little sister was the first person that I showed the picture to. And she's like, is that a Snapchat filter? Because she thought it was a picture of me.
Wow.
Where it's like you change it to make myself look like a girl. And I was like, no, that's my birth mom. And she's like, oh shit, that looks exactly like you. And I'm like, well, yeah, that's my birth mom. So I'm pretty sure that we would look alike. And she's like, no, yeah, like that's like a spitting image of you. So I wrote another letter back, sent some more pictures, and haven't heard from her since. So like I'm debating on writing another letter because of the whole COVID thing, just to make sure that she's all right. But I like the initial letter that I wrote back, it was like, I think my confidence was a little too high, because like I kind of pushed for her to give me her cacao information or find me on Facebook or something. And I think that might have made her a little scared. So I haven't heard back from her yet, so I might end up writing her another letter soon. But yeah, that's kind of where I'm at right now.
Wild.
Thank you for sharing that
Amazing.
story, man.
Yeah. Seriously.
That was a ride.
That was enthralling.
Yeah.
Hilarious and gripping and all of it. Yeah.
I had to, man, I'm just all over the place today, and that story really got me kind of emotional a little bit, just because thinking about receiving that, even one picture, and then seeing yourself reflected back. Like, I know, Nathan, you've received pictures, and that's what you said about, like, when you saw your brother, like, you're like, okay, I think we're related because we look the same. And just I couldn't imagine, like, the emotions. And like you said, you know, you're in the kitchen, like, when you first get your first letter and you're reading this and you're, like, processing all of this. And I was wondering, after that very first one that you got, when you're in the kitchen, when you finally got a chance to go home and sit with that for a little bit, what do you remember just what that initial, like, reaction was when you finally got a moment to yourself?
There were so many different emotions going through my head at that point. Like, I don't think there was one that really stuck out, because, like, I remember that, like, the second I got that notification, I saw that it was from the person, like, my contact or person at Holt. Like, I knew it was something that was related to my birth mom, so, like, my heart was pounding, and I had no idea, but I was, like, so excited about getting that email. I was like, I can't, like, not look at it right now, like. So I opened it, and there's, like, then I was, like, reading that and stuff. Like, I think the thing that got me the most emotional, or, like, kind of, like, charged the whole mixed emotions about everything, was the fact that she was like, "Is it okay if I call you my son?" And I'm like, how do I respond to that? Because I started thinking about it. I was like, if I say yes to this person calling me her son, how are my adopted parents going to think if I tell them that? How am I going to think about, like, just being like who am I going to lean towards more? So it was just like, it was it was hard to process. I don't think I really processed it for a couple days. And so, like, even looking back at it, like, I'm still like partially confused as to where my emotions are and what I want to do. Because I know that none of this really defines me. I've turned into the person that I am because of how I've lived. This is just like another picture to the story. This isn't like the defining thing for me. And I think that really helped me kind of process what was going on, and understanding that I'm still me no matter what. It's just like, all right, there's just like another piece to this puzzle.
Yeah, I think that's one of the most amazing things about, or most interesting and amazing things about your story, is just how it's played out, and how you came from your hometown and then started working in the kitchens, and then met some other adoptees, then started working at the camps, and then started to feel confident enough to go out into the actual Korean American community or the Asian American community and befriend people in that community. And that's one of the things that I admire most about you, is your comfortability within the AAPI spaces, like specifically on Clubhouse. So that's where I know you from and see you interacting a lot. But even just in that, like hearing you talk about the people that you know and have met and the communities you've interacted in, you've engaged in a way that, for me specifically as an adoptee, I did not even realize you could find a comfort in that. So I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about, you know, that comfortability and that sense of comfortability being an adoptee, but then, like, not only working your way into the Korean American community, but finding, like, lasting friendship and actual relationships within the community.
Yeah. So I think for me, I build my confidence off of a false sense of confidence to begin with. Like, because I'm nervous as shit a lot when I talk in Asian rooms on Clubhouse. I remember the first time that I talked in front of a larger audience, like, my voice was shaking because I was like, there's so many Asians in this room. There are like 500 Asians here.
Yeah.
But like the false sense of security, where it's like I can convince myself that I should be comfortable in this space. eventually it turns into actual confidence. And then I kind of just take it in stride and just go from there. So I give myself a false sense of security, um, and then eventually it just becomes security. So I guess I Napoleon complex myself.
I mean,
It's funny. I was just having a conversation with somebody else where, kind of talking about the same things. I was like, sometimes you got to start. For us, it was like switching from, like for two dudes who grew up using self-deprecating humor to then be like, how do I love myself and how do I still make these kinds of jokes, but actually show that I am incredibly confident in who I am, and just the power of language. And I was telling him, I was like, I think what it takes is you actually need to speak first, and that like literally helps your brain. It retrains your brain to like think differently or to act differently, and then eventually like your heart and your inner self catch up to what you're speaking. But you just kind of like, whether you use the term projecting or whiteboarding or manifesting or whatever the term is, I think that there is real validity to saying something and then following through, and like there is kind of a validity to faking it till you make it. Because like I think for us, part of the fear that I from my own perspective and kind of anecdotally is like, we just don't have language. We don't know how to talk to other Asian Americans. We are not comfortable maybe sharing our own stories as adoptees. Like it's not a thing that we do a whole lot, whatever. And so like it's like, I don't know, if I was to speak in Spanish to y'all or speak the very little bit of Korean that I know, or, whatever, I would feel really nervous. Not because I think that I'm unintelligent or anything. I'm just not familiar with the language, but I want to express myself well, And so I think just being able to say that and just go for it. And then like, especially if you can keep the calm exterior, you can freak out however much you want on the inside, but if you can keep that calm exterior and then just do it and do it and do it, then like just by experience, you get more calm and more comfortable. And then I think that your identity does begin to shift because you have said lots of things, lots of truths about yourself, or truths that you want to be true about yourself, just kind of over and over and over again. And then it just sits in your brain until it becomes reality, or until you're like, I don't want that anymore. I'm going to go do something else.
Yeah, and a couple glasses of whiskey help too.
Yeah.
Very
Hey
true.
man, whatever it takes to get you there.
Yeah.
And you obviously have made it. So even though you may have faked it a little at the beginning and getting into the fusion restaurant, I mean, you would have, if you didn't have the skills to have done what you did, you would have been out of there in a few weeks. And so obviously your confidence is not something to disregard, and not your skills were definitely there. I also love the fact that it was a fusion restaurant in a way, kind of symbolizing how we are all kind of a fusion of Korean and American, embodiments. We are kind of both, and the fusion of that kind of has introduced you more into the Korean culture, which is, I think, really cool because you slowly went into it. You didn't just jump into a strict Korean restaurant, making, banchan and things like that. I think that is really neat, and it's really correlated well with how things have been going. So,
so it brings us to now. I know that the restaurant industry has been highly affected by the pandemic. I don't know your current situation, but I do know that you've been doing a lot on Clubhouse, and I know that you're also active on the Subtle Asian Adoptee Traits Facebook Zooms, which is where I had first heard about you from another adoptee, and then randomly saw you in a Clubhouse room. So I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about how you got to that group and into hosting the Zooms, and then talk a little bit about as well your experience on Clubhouse and some of the stuff you've been doing there, not only for the community, but just for people in general.
Yeah. So I started joining a couple of Facebook groups for Korean adoptees. So I joined the Philly chapter initially, and then I kind of branched out to KAA and KA. And then someone on KA was talking about subtle Asian adoptee traits, or I think it was either that or it came up as a suggestion for me to join. So I joined the group, and at that point there were I think maybe 2,000 people in the group already. Then the pandemic hit. I was just trying to find a way to get to know new people. So someone else had started doing like a couple of Zoom calls, like maybe 2 weeks prior on Fridays, but Fridays were always busy for me. So I decided to do Wednesdays, Wednesday calls. So I would host Wednesday calls, and then this other person would host Friday calls. And we go back and forth so we could kind of just like coordinate all this stuff. So starting last April, we decided to do this weekly Zoom call thing where we would host Zoom calls every Wednesday and Friday. And it started off with like 12 people, and then like in the heart of the pandemic, it blew up to like 70 to 80 people coming into Zoom calls from around the world. Like I've met adoptees from Australia. I know adoptees from Europe. I know adoptees who moved back to Korea and live in Korea now. And we kind of built a community where we could have these friendships and build them, almost similar to Clubhouse, but you could see people. So we would get to talk to people. It was we would talk about adoption stuff, but we would also just have general like conversations, just like shooting the shit. We started having Discord groups where we play video games together, and it turned out to be this like really awesome community of adoptees, and it kind of just grew from there, to a point where we'd have to like almost quote unquote hire people to help host the rooms. So now there's a team of 6 adoptees that host these Zoom calls, and we still host them every Wednesday and Friday. And there's just like this whole rotation schedule. We do Zoom calls to figure out at the beginning of the month who's going to be hosting which Zoom calls. And it was really cool to see. I have since backed out of it because of a lot of the stuff that I do on Clubhouse. Kind of took over that, but it's in very good hands. So I can appreciate just like sitting back and relaxing from that and not have to do both. But having that confidence of like hosting these Zoom calls and stuff kind of made me confident when it came to Clubhouse and just being super open and being super just genuine and being myself. And I guess it worked in my favor. Like the coffee shop that I run, it's almost like a second rebirth of like building a community. It's just not just adoptees anymore. It's pretty much anyone who walks into that room can become a part of this community. And then branching from there, I just started opening up other rooms, going into other rooms, having the confidence to just be like, hey, you guys are Asian, so am I. What's up? Like, let's get to know each other and stuff. And yeah, like it's built me the confidence to talk to other Asians that aren't adopted. It's built the confidence to feel more Asian than I have ever, and be able to like go as far as calling someone out for shit that they've done on the app that isn't really cool to the Asian community. Because like when I did that and I called someone out for something that happened on Clubhouse, one of the first things I did after that like whole debacle like kind of settled down, like I texted one of my friends and I was like, yo, like did I have like the power to do that? Like is that okay? Like because you see all these organizations and like they're like there were people in there that like that are very very vocal, like have really very very powerful and big voices within the API community. And I was like, I'm a Korean adoptee. Like, is this all right? Like, am I allowed to say this? And it took a little while to kind of just be like, yeah, like you're adopted, like you're adopted, but you're still Korean. And even to this day, like I was in a room yesterday where it was titled like it was Korean men talking about their feelings, because that's not really a thing that happens for Korean men. And it was like a super safe space, although there were 300 people in there. And so I went on stage and kind of told my story like I am right now, a little bit shorter than what I'm doing right now. But I told my story, and like I'm sitting there telling my story in bed, and I'm just like bawling my eyes out, like crying in front of all these people. And the responses that I got from the moderators and people, I got like 10 people DM'd me on Instagram, and telling me like, yeah, like appreciate you telling your story, like appreciate like you're Korean, man, like you're one of us, like your family. Like one of the first like things that really stuck out in my head was this one person on Clubhouse. Literally the second that I met him and he saw that I was Korean, he DM'd me on Instagram and he's like, yo, here's my personal number. If you need anything, let me know. You're Korean, your family. And I was like, okay, like this could be something really good for me. And that's why I think that I've succeeded in the things that I do on Clubhouse as much as I have, because I have that support system behind me.
Man, you have been succeeding too. Like seriously, man, you talked about it a little bit. You talked about building community, and that was literally the thing I was thinking of while you were speaking about this, because you're, in my opinion, a community builder. And I think you talked about being an extrovert at the beginning. I think that, combined with your really unique story and the stuff that you've just done, the hustle part of it too, all plays a factor in this ability that you have to not only speak truly from the heart and speak compassionately, but be able to actually speak on experience. And it brings people in and makes people want to engage. I will say that the first time I went on stage in Clubhouse was in an AAPI space, and it was because you were talking about your story and you said that you were an adoptee. And I think there was maybe ended up being like 3 other adoptees that came on the stage that day. But that was the very first time that I had made, outside of this show, that I had like felt like I was publicly speaking about this story specifically in a way that I was able to tell it to other Asian Americans and not feel less than, because I got great responses. Like you just said, like, people like messaged me and said, hey, you're, it's all good. Your family, you are Asian. But again, like that's what led to starting our own stuff and starting, adoptee specific spaces. A lot of that is thanks to you just giving not only me, but others the confidence to do it in the adoptee space, but also to see an adoptee that is not a Kevin Kreider. That's not somebody, not somebody that's been like,
no shade to Kevin.
Yeah, no shade to Kevin,
personal friend,
but
Kevin
someone that's not made it in like a hugely successful way. Their name's known everywhere by a bunch of people as an adoptee. I think when people see that, adoptees specifically, they can, and for me at least, it feels very detached from reality. There's a lot of suspension of belief, and I feel like that's not the way that you're going to find your way into the community. However, your story, I think, is one of the ways, and I think that's why it's so important for other people to hear, especially the listeners of our show, is to show the different beats that you go through to go from erasing yourself to being accepted by other Asian Americans that are not adoptees. I think I think from there to there is an incredible journey, and I think yours, not necessarily a model, but it's really something that's very inspirational, I think, for me, and I think probably a lot of other adoptees that are able to listen to this. So I really appreciate you, sharing and being so open and sharing about your mom and that experience. I feel really honored that you were able to, or that you were willing to share that with us.
I appreciate that. It means a lot. It means a lot.
I think it was so unique, and it is like, not to put you on a pedestal or anything, but I think you kind of uniquely provide a path forward, not the path forward, but a path forward, in that just like Patrick said, going from erasing your identity, I think a lot of the stories that I've heard anecdotally, again, are just like, I didn't want anything to do with being Asian or being Korean or being a person of color. I didn't want to deal with that. And then, like, as I've grown older, I've realized like the world sees me as this, so I might as well figure out how to navigate my way through it. But so going from kind of that rejection of your biological identity, I guess, and kind of socio-biological identity, and then moving through, like, what's unique about your story is you found first, or rather they found you, this Korean adoptee group, and I think you were able to spend time sharing your story. You had those safe spaces, and Patrick, I'm grateful for you, and I have seen it. I've seen your community and the communities that you are working towards grow, of a lot of adoptees who are coming into that space, transracial adoptees, Asian adoptees who are saying like, this is the first time I've shared my story, or the first time that I've been able to do these things, right? Like, you find your footing, you are able to express yourself. And then Matt, again, you coming in, I've been a part of a number of your Clubhouse rooms where it's just like, how Clubhouse is? Let's be the opposite of that. Let's just be fun and chill and just hang out and just whatever, which is like such a breath of freaking fresh air. And you make it so easy. Like, your confidence makes it really easy for other people to talk. But I think what's also impressive is your courage, and specifically your courage to go into a place like Korean American or Korean men speaking about their feelings, and do something where you put your heart on your sleeve. And whether that feels courageous to you, I think for my sense of adoptees is like we are uh, more timid or more reluctant maybe to just put it all out there because for whatever reason, but for you to do that and then to receive all of this love back, and obviously that's not going to happen every time. I have no idea what the percentage of it is, in terms of how many times it's going to happen, but I think for so long I was my worst enemy in terms of being able to go into spaces and speak confidently, or being able to go into spaces and speak courageously and be vulnerable, because like I was so afraid of the backlash of like, well, you're not Asian American anyway, so shut up. Like I was so afraid of that I never opened myself up to the possibility of hearing like, dude, you're one of us and we want you here. And we, like if you need something, like we got your back, like your family, but, and so there, like your pathway, which is good for you and might be good for others, I think is such a good, I mean, it is the light at the end of the tunnel. It is the glimmer of hope, whatever you want to call it, of just like, it is worth it to risk putting your heart out there. It is worth it to risk being in these spaces and being courageous, faking until you're making it, whatever. And you find real, deep, good community and maybe find some healing or find some closure in your identities yourself.
Sure you don't want to put me on a pedestal?
I was going to say, I got him lifted up on the pedestal for sure.
I'm not as eloquent as the other two. I'm just going to say thanks for coming on the show. I think we could be here for hours talking about all the stuff out there and all different issues and things that are happening on Clubhouse and stuff. But I think it's been... I don't think this will be the last time we talk to you on our show.
Yeah, I got to ask you about your best, or the thing you won at the Burger Showdown, or your feature there. Because I like burgers.
I guess I'm like chock full of funny stories, because this is a pretty funny story too. So I got hired to help open this restaurant as the executive sous chef. So I was second in command, and one of my responsibilities before we actually opened the restaurant was to help the chef create the menu. So we kind of divvied it up. Like he had a very good idea of how he wanted to like situate his menu with certain dishes. I would just be the one who kind of executed it and created the recipes and stuff. And so we created this burger. It was a double smash burger with caramelized onions, Cooper sharp cheddar, lettuce, and like a special sauce. So when I was making that, the restaurant was formerly an Asian fusion restaurant. So there was like still some product left over. And I happened to find some rice wine, some gochujang. And so I made it like a standard special sauce with pickles, mayonnaise, ketchup. And then I added the rice vinegar, some gochujang, and a couple other things that I can't tell you, or else I'll kill you.
It's worth it.
We'll just bleep it out. We'll just bleep it out.
There were a couple other things. There was like, we put some and a couple like little spices here and there, and we put that on our burger. I'm
gonna bleep out one of those ingredients.
So we created that burger, and one of the food critics for Philadelphia publication came in and ate the burger, and like he's a huge burger fan, and he was like, the confidence of making this burger and not putting tomatoes on there is pretty big. But it was one of the best burgers he had, and it ultimately ended up like, this was like towards the beginning of the year, towards the end of the year, it ended up winning the best burger in Philly. However, I was not employed there when they won the best burger. I'm just taking credit for it.
Okay.
So basically what happened was we created this burger that has not changed. It stayed on the menu, but the executive chef that was working there got into a really big fight with the owner about the direction of where the restaurant was going. So he ended up putting his notice in, and then got into another big fight and ended up just quitting and walking out. So they had me in charge for a little bit. And then one day, like a week and a half afterwards, the owner comes up to me and he goes, "Hey, Matt, we are going to get rid of all the back of the house management team because we want to start fresh. So we're going to let you go." And I was like, okay, that's fine, because I was going to quit anyway, because I have another job lined up. I just wanted to give you a little bit of time. So like I told the next job that I was going to work at that I would start working in a month, but it ended up being a week later because of this certain instance. So I pretty much just got let go because he didn't want the remnants of the old chef still within the restaurant, and he wanted to start completely fresh. And then I saw all the best of Philadelphia awards come out, and I saw that burger, and I was like, "That's my fucking burger. I'm taking credit for this shit." So I'm taking full credit for that.
I like that I have the context now for that specific line item in your bio. I like that.
Like I've told other
burger.
people, and they're like I was a little wary about it because the person who wrote about it, the food critic in Philly, he's actually on Clubhouse, and I was like, should I take this down? But I was like, no, like I made this. Like, no, he can go. He can kiss my ass.
I think you should
Yeah,
leave it
so
up.
I've left it up.
As long as it's true.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
mean, it's not like you're lying about the burger.
No,
It's your burger.
we sold more burgers than anything else in that restaurant.
I want to try it.
Yeah,
I
so
know.
I don't think
yeah.
I've ever
I'm
actually
so
put
hungry now.
gochujang on a burger before, so actually that's
I haven't had the opportunity, but I
Yeah.
totally would. That sounds amazing.
it sounds really good.
Well, Matt, thank you so much for coming on the show. Where can people find you to ask you about other Clubhouse line items in your profile, or
I didn't mean to call it
where
a
can
line
people where can people
Where can people try
find you
your
on the
burgers?
So as of right now, I'm currently unemployed. I'm in the process of trying to figure out what my next step is, be it within the realm of the restaurant industry or back in kitchens or a completely different project, and just like keeping food as a passion of mine, like a passion project. As of right now, I'm always willing to cook food for anyone who asks. Obviously, a little money my way doesn't doesn't hurt. But yeah, I mean, like anyone can get in touch with me on Instagram. You can always DM me on Instagram. I guess Clubhouse has made me to use Twitter again, even though I don't know what I'm doing with that. But I know that if I get a message, it notifies me so I can answer you.
What's your Instagram handle?
Yeah, so it's at MattBookPro 1014.
I literally just am getting it that it's
MacBook.
what it means.
Yeah, instead of MacBook.
Seriously?
I've
That's
looked
cool.
at it so many times the past
Armstrong,
2
what
months.
the heck?
I'm just now getting it. Damn
Yeah.
it, I'm stupid.
You could have gone with the Big Matt.
Damn it.
right.
All right. And
anyways.
on that note, that's a perfect
We're gonna
segue.
take a break, and when we come back, we're gonna be trying a Korean snack. So stay tuned.
Roll clip.
We are back with a Hello Korea box. So first off, thank you, Matt, for your interview. It was so fantastic. Today, we wanted to get into our second Hello Korea box, which is amazing.
So
We are
exciting.
so grateful for them to sending us and sponsoring the show, sending us another box. So
A
yeah,
box of goodies. I've been holding on to this longer, and I have not opened it, so I have no clue what's in it. So.
alrighty,
Hello, Korea box.
here we go. Ready?
Okay.
Open.
Open.
Hello, friend.
Hello. It says hello.
Ooh.
Oh, look, the Korean phrase of the month.
Phrase of the month.
I
Yes.
like that.
Okay. Read it to me.
Na begopa.
Na
begopa.
Yeah.
Nice. So this is very informal. Begopa, it just means I'm hungry.
Begopa.
Begopa.
What's na?
Na is I.
Oh.
And you'll usually hear it as na는 or nan, but you don't really need that because it's clear that you're talking about yourself. So yeah, it's begopa.
Begopa. I'm hungry.
Begopa.
Usually
am
when it's
hungry.
around dinner time or like it's close to bedtime, I will just look over at Sarah and just go begopa because I'm always hungry.
Ooh, interesting. Looking
There's
at
some fun
the-
fact.
Oh, you're doing the fun facts?
Yeah.
No, I was just saying there's some fun facts in the card.
I like the card.
Oh, I know. That's what I was going to
Was
say.
there a
Yeah,
card in the
it's a
last
fun
one?
fact.
Because I don't remember.
Yeah, dude, because it had the little thingy with the what it is. It is what
Yeah.
it is on the back.
Oh, I don't remember reading the whole thing last time. I apologize. I should have read more.
Because we had Juliet
Sorry,
here. She was
Juliet.
just like, she'll
Oh,
just
that's true.
explain it
She
to
was
Oh, yeah, she was
explaining
reading
everything
it
that was
off.
in there, so that's probably why I didn't
Whoa,
look
guys.
at it. What?
BTS bracelet.
What?
Oh, I know.
Whoa.
This is nice. I'm very
The
excited
BTS
about this.
Army.
Hold on, I gotta read this fact for
Oh, yeah.
for our listeners.
Drop
so,
it.
did you know
I did
in
not know.
Korea you're considered to be a year old when you're born?
Oh,
You
진짜?
also turn a year older at the start of a new year. So, depending on when your birthday is, you may be 2 years older than how the rest of the world perceives you.
What?
Interesting.
The more you know.
That is true.
Wait, depending on when your birthday is, maybe 2 years old.
So, if you're on
Oh,
January
I guess if you were
1st
born, like December
Oh yeah, 31st. I guess.
23rd, or something like that.
Before the
Then you would be born you'd be 1 years old, and then the next year in a couple of days you'd be 2 years old.
Yeah.
But you wouldn't actually turn 1
Yeah.
until the next December. Woof.
Confusing.
That's a very
Yikes.
confusing.
Also on here is a food highlight of kimchi. The kimchi is a
Yay.
staple in every Korean household and is served with every Korean meal. Kimchi refers to any vegetables that have been salted, seasoned, and fermented, with the most popular being cabbage.
I will say I have started eating kimchi fried rice
Ooh, nice.
every morning.
On the regular?
Every morning.
Every month?
It hits
Every
my-
morning?
Yeah, it hits my macros really, really well.
Ooh,
so
See, that was
yes.
something that surprised me, was learning that they did rice in the morning.
Lemonade, candy.
Oh, nice. KJ's
Ooh,
been
our
missing that.
churro thing is back. This is
Ah,
so
yes.
exciting. We've had this before on our show, and they were wonderful. So, yeah, go back and listen to that episode. Poro Poro. Amazing.
I don't
Wow.
know any BTS songs to sing. I don't know the lyrics.
Like an echo. That's it. I only know this. Yeah, life goes on. Yes, put that headband on. I'm gonna do it right now.
You look like your daughter. That's hilarious. You look like Robin.
I feel like I just got out of the spa.
Am I wearing this right?
Treat yourself. 2021.
Yeah. And I'm going to put on the coffee milk face mask. Probably not to be eaten.
Oh, we have a new
Eat
face
it.
mask.
It's a new face
Coffee
mask.
milk.
I liked the last face mask.
I did not try it. I'll
I
try
didn't
this one.
try it
now.
yet either. Oh, another bag.
Another pouch. Cute.
Another pencil
Pouch.
bag. This one's, yeah, it has a
Pencils.
bear on it.
I
That's
like
super
this
cute.
one better than the milk one, to be honest. Only just slightly more practical with the flat.
Oh yeah, sure. We got more shrimp crackers.
Yes. A strawberry pen.
Nongshim shrimp crackers. I love their pens.
These pens are great.
So
I don't know
much.
where she's getting them, but
I'm just like I look like a little treat.
You're a legit
What's up?
snack.
we got some stickers. Rainbow stickers. Those are cute.
Is this a journal? Oh, it says I love you. With a little like banana milk but strawberry milk kind
oh,
of thing.
nice.
Is this a journal?
It's like strawberry milk.
Yes. Oh, this is so wonderful.
Wow.
What's that say? It says saranghae?
Saranghaeyo.
Saranghae.
Oh wait, no, sorry. Saranghaeyu,
Saranghae.
which is like a very cutesy way of saying I love you.
Yeah, watching the first episode of Startup, I now know saranghae is I love you.
Oh, yeah.
Saranghaeyu.
And of course, the samyang ramen, the spicy one.
I just
Oh,
want to use this.
so our two candies are Sekum Dalkum, which we just had on the show. They were those strawberry sour,
Oh, this
sweet and
is the
sour
sour-
candies. Yeah, so we have one that's a strawberry again, and another that's a lemonade. So I say we should compare these two since we've had both.
Lemon.
and,
Look at this
and see
sour
how that
face.
is.
Well, I just ate the lemon one.
Is it
All
sour?
right. I guess I'm gonna dive in. Then I gotta catch up.
Yep, sorry. I was like,
Remember the
"Ah,
last time I had this? I can't
Lemonade.
do it enough.
it's a little bit hard
Oh
to
yeah,
talk.
you don't chew it right.
Don't talk about my shoe like that.
Well, you just don't chew it.
Yeah, you just swallow, remember?
You're like the owl on the center of the Tootsie Pop commercial. It
yeah.
goes,
1, 2, crunch.
3, crunch. Yeah.
I like it. It's good. I'm excited to use my strawberry
Oh
pen
my
with
god,
my
I actually
strawberry
just
milk.
did it.
What,
You
you
just
swallowed
swallowed
again?
Armstrong, what the heck?
I was just getting the sour too, and I'm like, ooh, this is good, and then it just slipped down my throat.
How does it just slip down your throat like it's gone?
I was just like, I don't know. When I eat food, it's like I want it in me. I don't want it to reside in me for a long time. I want it to go down into my stomach.
okay.
You guys will see when we
then.
mean in person. You're gonna be like, this guy's eating like a vacuum. What's wrong with
Exactly, and no one's buying you an expensive meal because that thing would not be savored. It would be
it? Oh
gone.
yeah, I know. I feel bad every time I get expensive meals.
Guys.
What?
I just realized this Poro Poro churro thing was the chocolate cream churro. On this episode, I said, this is so good. Sarah, I'm not going to save you any. Sorry. She then later heard it and was like, what? Why didn't you save me any? But she is now sitting next to me. So, Sarah, here you go. All is forgiven.
Aw.
We did it. Okay. So, yeah, we got some stickers. We got Poro Poro,
We're getting a photo
Ramen.
apparently from Patrick.
stew type buldak bokum.
I gotta take a picture of this hilarious moment.
Tangmyeon. So yeah, spicy hot ramen, chicken flavor. Very exciting.
Could be the cover.
Are these stickers?
And I'm excited for the ramen. I love these boxes. They're just like a little surprise every month, and
Yeah.
each of the things that comes in it has little food, little spice, little candy, little beauty product, little K-pop item. And then some,
Sarah, how's the thing?
that's awesome.
It's wonderful. Sarah, come on the show. Hurry
Sarah,
up.
voice of the
Hurry up.
show. Come on the show
Come
and be the
swallow
voice.
strawberry candy. Like,
How is it?
Very good.
is it good? You like it?
I love it.
very
I don't
good.
kind of like how it makes my teeth feel when I bite into it, but I like how it tastes.
Well, if you had to give it a rating out of 5, how many
this?
how many poro-poros would you give it?
Like a 4.
4 out of 5. All right, there you go.
Nice.
You heard it here first,
good.
folks. So I've now had the strawberry and lemonade sekum dalkum. I like the strawberry better.
Agreed. This actually tastes better than the other strawberry ones we had.
Oh, maybe they're fresher.
I think. Oh my god! I just did it again. I think that I didn't even mean to do it. I went to talk and I just swallowed it.
3.
I think this is more taffy-like. I think the other ones were really hard, like they had sat for a long time, and like been compromised
ready.
in some way. But these ones were good. Much more like Laffy Taffy consistency, in my opinion.
Sarah literally can't handle that I'm just sitting here with this headband on. I mean, all 3 of us, yeah.
Just
It's
tell
pretty
her
cute.
to put it on like this, like a bow tie.
Oh, yeah. Like a bow tie.
It's the saddest bow tie just flopping there. It's just.
Okay, so if you've been listening to this and you're like, OMG, I want to be just like the Janchi Boys. I need to get this Hello Korea box full of K.
It's a bunch of people
K-pop,
shaking their head right now. Going,
K
no,
culture.
I don't. I don't.
K
wanna be with
snacks.
them."
Yeah, then you can get your very own Hello Korea box if you go to HelloKoreaBox.com. Use the promo code Janchi15. It gets you 15% off your order and helps support the show. That's a double whammy. So buy yourself one, buy one for a friend. They make great gifts, whatever,
Buy a
however you're doing
subscription
this.
for a year. These things are great.
These are so cute. I think it is 1,000,000% worth it. So again, HelloKoreaBox.com. Janchi15 is your promo code. And then you can have a Janchi of your own. This is so cute and so fun. And if you're a boy and you're like, I don't know if I'm ready for this, get over yourself. You're ready for it. Get
Put the
in there.
headband on.
They're really great. Or get it for
Give the face mask if you need to your mom or your sister or somebody
or
else. You don't have to use it if you don't want
potential
it.
person who just likes cute
I did
stuff.
it last week and I'm glowing.
That's true. And it's not just your face lights that are making you glow. So your skin is radiant.
My skin is silky smooth.
Great skin.
All right. So
Excellent. For the viewers, where can we be found? We are at Janchi Show at all platforms.
I love that you lobbed it up and then you're like, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and spike this
just
myself.
gonna
I don't need my
myself.
stupid co-host.
Threw it up off the backboard.
Nathan.
15 love.
But Janchi Show at all platforms and wherever you listen to your podcast, of course, here on YouTube. And you can email us at janchishow@justlikemedia.com. And of course, find us on Facebook and the After Party or on our normal page there.
You can support the show at janchishow.com/support. And that is, of course, if you don't just want to go to HelloKoreaBox.com, use promo code Janchi15. Or you do both. You know, we're not going to tell you how to live your life. It would be great if you did one or the other. It'd be cool if you did both. But, you know, you do you. We're just here to keep you entertained, keep you company while you're driving your car, or walking your dogs, or taking your kids to work. Maybe it's take your kids to work. It could be take your kids to work day. I mean,
It could
probably
be.
not because we're still in the pandemic, but, you know, who knows?
Somebody's listening to this on that day and is going, "Oh my god!"
It's been 10 years. I've actually just released my next single, and they're like, "Oh my gosh, it's all of these things are happening to me at once," and that'd be amazing. Anyways, you can find me online at KJ Relke anywhere that I want to be found. You can now actually officially find me on Spotify and Apple Music as KJ
Yeah.
Relke.
To the dawn.
Yay!
Okay.
You can find me at Patrick in the World on Instagram and at P Armstrong on Clubhouse.
And I am Nowak Photo or Nowak on Instagram. And we are thankful for everyone watching and listening and for Matt to come on the show. So you can find him in the show notes. I think it was MacBook Pro, don't quote me.
1014.
1024.
Yeah.
Oh,
What?
1014.
1024. Get out of here,
1024.
Patrick.
MacBook
No, I think
Pro.
it's 1014.
Read the show notes. We should have looked that part up. Sorry, Matt.
And we're the three best friends that anyone could have.
But thank you for listening and watching and singing along with KJ.
All right. And now instead of our regular outro music, I'm going to put in To the Dawn so that you can just listen to it here at the very end. So I'm gonna play you out with my new single, To the Dawn. We'll see you next week. Until then, Janchi Heyo!
Bye.
Goodbye.
Woke up one morning and found out my world turned to gray. Thought it would dissipate, I just went on with my day. 3 weeks had passed and I realized nothing had changed. And everything I tried, it all felt wrong. But I will not believe that hope is gone. I feel like I'm falling, I feel like I'm falling apart. I don't have the words to explain what's inside of my heart. How can I understand? I don't know what's going on. My only hope is I'm making my way to the dawn. To the dawn. Woke up one morning and told myself I'd be okay. Tried to find joy, but I realized joy had been swept away. Can't shake the feeling, these feelings just won't go away. And everything I've tried, it all feels wrong. But I will not believe that hope is gone. I feel like I'm falling, I feel like I'm falling apart. I don't have the words to explain what's inside of my heart. How can I understand? I don't know what's going on. Whoa. My only hope is I'm making my way out the feel like I'm falling apart. I don't have the words to explain what's inside of my heart. How can I understand? I don't know what's going on.